Hello everyone, welcome to the series of lecture on semiconductor memory. In this lecture series, we are going to discuss about different types of semiconductor memories, the way data can be stored to the memory, circuit required to read data from the memory and write data to the memory. So let's start our discussion with the introduction, the anecdote. In almost all the digital systems, the use of semiconductor memory is inevitable. The embedded system around you, personal computers, data center, etc. In all these systems, you will find semiconductor memory in one or the other form. A typical digital system can be divided into two parts. A part where the logic or the algorithm of the digital system is implemented using combination of various transistors, and the other part, where the data is stored using transistor. That part of the system is called as memory. Uh, the amount of memory required in a digital system depends upon the type of application. But in general, we can say that the number of transistors required to store data is always larger as compared to the number of transistors required to implement the algorithm of the system. Now, the memory can be of two types. I mean, it can be onboard memory, where it comes along with the digital logic, and there can be a single uh, chips where the memories are implemented. Now, in both the cases, the size of the memory is ever increasing. Hence, new fabrication technologies, new design rules have been introduced for the semiconductor memories, and it opens a wide area of research in semiconductor memories. There are various VLSI companies which specifically work in semiconductor memories. Hence, this discussion will introduce you to the semiconductor memories. So as I have mentioned, the new fabrication technologies have been introduced for fabrication of semiconductor memory, new design rules other than the digital system design rules like lambda rules that what we have studied. There are different set of design rules have been introduced for semiconductor memory. One reason is that the semi fabrication of semiconductor memory is very uniform. So the density is more as compared to the digital logic implementation of the transistor. So these, according to this new rule, various design techniques have been, or various designs for the memory have been introduced. But while selecting the memory for your application, there are few criteria that must be followed. First criteria is cost per bit. The number of bits that can be stored per unit area is called as cost per bit. So it's a measure of the density of semiconductor memory. Memory access time. The amount of time required to read data from the memory or write data to the memory is called as memory access time. So it basically gives the speed of the memory. It is just not the design criteria, it is also a performance criteria. Because this speed also depends upon the design of the system, that's why it can also be considered a design criteria. And of course, it gives you the speed. That's why how good your system is, or how good your memory is performing. It also gives a measure of the performance. Static and dynamic power consumption. To preserve the data which is stored in the memory, you have to the memory consumes some power. That part of the power or that power is called a static power. And while writing data to the memory, reading data from the memory, it consumes some power. That power is called as dynamic power. And the focus has always been on minimizing both the static as well as dynamic power. Now let's see the type of memory. I know all of you are aware of this, but let's quickly revise through this. There are two types of memories: read-only memory and read-write memory. Read-only memory is a ROM. As the name suggests, it can only it is just read-only memory. So while the system is in use, you can just read from the memory. You cannot write to the memory when the system is in use. There are various types of memories: ROM, mass program. In this type of memory, in this type of ROM, the data can be written to the memory only once. That is why fabricating it. Uh, the user is not able to write data to this type of memories. Second type is programmable ROM, that is PROM. User can program this memory, but only once. it cannot be used later to write any other data. Erasable PROM, as name suggests, the user can use it multiple times for writing data to it. Electrically erasable, obviously the data is stored using some electrical techniques. So this constitutes a read-only memory or ROM. Now, uh, this read-only memory or ROM is non-volatile. That means even if power is turned off, still the data will be preserved in the memory. Okay, so this is a non-volatile type of memory. In our chapter, in our syllabus, we are basically going to focus on this mask program ROM. The other type of memory is read-write memory. As the name suggests, the data can be read from or written into the memory while the system is in use. And this type of memory is volatile memory. That means once the power is turned off, the data will be lost. There are two types of two types of RAM based on the way the data is stored in the memory. So first part is static RAM, which consists of basically back-to-back connected inverters or a latch type of latch is used to store the data in SRAM. In dynamic RAM, the data is stored in the form of charge on the capacitor. So we are going to discuss about SRAM and DRAM in detail in this uh, lecture series. Now memory array. So once the data is stored, so it should be, one thing is required is it should be uniquely identified so that it can be retrieved, particular data can be retrieved. Now, also, if you want to write data to a particular location, that location should be uniquely identified. So for that, we use address. So based on the number of address bit, the size of the memory can be determined. So if there are m address bit, then 2 raised to m locations can be uniquely identified by using m number of bits. Hence, every bit which is stored at these locations can be uniquely identified. If the address is uniquely identified, then the data can be returned to the address or read from the address. Hence, it's largely depends upon the number of address bits used to access the memory. A row decoder, a simple row decoder circuit is used to activate particular address line or particular location and memory location based on the set of address bits. So for example, if I have, let's consider one example here. So let's consider if I have 8 bit of addresses, that is, let's consider A1 to A8. These 8 bit of addresses are there. Then 2 raised to 8, that is 256 locations can be uniquely identified. For example, it will be 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. Okay, this is the first location, and the final location would be, and then of course then 1, then 1, 0, and so on. Then the final location would be 8 ones. Now based on A1 to A8 value, when A1 to A8 is 0, 0, 0, this bit will be selected, or this location will be selected. When it is some other combination, that particular combination or the particular location will be identified. And the row decoder basically, it's a kind of digital circuit, it's a combinational logic which, based on these inputs, activate only one address location. Now here in this diagram, we can see only one bit is stored at particular location, but this can be further extended to store multiple bits at the location. Now this leads to the array kind of structure here. So here you can see there is a line like it was there for the single bit as well. Now here this line can be further extended, these lines can be further extended. So at these lines, if I select a combination, particular combination of this address, particular line will be activated. Once this line is activated, then all the cells or all these bits which are stored at this location can be accessed. But to access a particular bit, a column is also used. This column line is used. Now, particularly for this combination, you can see this row has been activated and this column has been activated. So this B3 can be accessed. Now the data is stored in this location. These locations are called as cells. Now at the combination, at the cross point of every row and column, there lies a cell. In this type of array, a single bit can be read by the column decoder, or multiple bits can also be read by the column decoder. Let's extend our example. Uh, let's use the same example here. So if we have the address line A1 to A8, okay, and that means 256 memory locations can be uniquely identified. Now, out of this 256, uh, at these 256 locations, let's consider we have stored 16 bit of data. So this is D1 to D16. Now to access these 16 bits, we must have 4-bit column address over here. So it should be C1, C2, C3 and C4. Suppose I want to access this particular cell, then address of this line and address of this column, or this column must be activated, this row must be activated. Now these rows are also called as word line, these are called as bit line or column line. So once both these lines are activated, at the cross point this D2 is connected, so this can be read by using the column decoder. So column or the column lines or the bit lines are not just only used to activate a particular location, but also to read from the location or to write something to the location. So they have they serve both the purposes. First is to identify a particular bit, as well as to read a bit or write to a bit. Now, in this kind of memory array, one thing we have to remember, that if we are storing data, it need not to be a 16-bit data. We can store, even if it is a 16-bit data, we can store 32-bit of data here. Like the data will remain 16-bit, but the width of the column can be the width of the column uh, can be 32-bit. Now let's rearrange these address bits. Now let's see what is the advantage of this. So instead of using A1 to A8 here, what I can do is I'll use A2 to A8 here. And oh, sorry, let's do it differently. So I'll use A1 to A7 here, and it's 8-bit data, but now A8 is remaining. What I can do is I will use this A8 along with this bit address. So what will happen? Now it has become 128 bits, so there will be 128 line. Now because it was C1, C2, C3, C4, so there were 16 lines now. Now I have used A8 here, which is decoder. So to the input of decoder, so it has become 5. So there will be a set of 16, and there is another set of 16. So there will be 32 lines, because now I have 5 inputs. So instead of using 8 here, I have used it as a MSB of this column decoder. Now 2 raised to 5 is 32. So 32 columns will be there, and 128 rows will be there. Now what will happen? Suppose the total size of the memory is 128 cross 32, which was earlier 256 cross 16. So the size of memory remains same, but just this arrangement has been changed. What is the advantage of this? The advantage is that this memory access become faster, because here the number of transistors connected in series, in this case, if you have, let's say, 8 bits were there, earlier 8 bits were there, so obviously 256 lines were there. Now instead of 8 lines, there are suppose 7 lines, and 1 line is used here, so 128 lines is there. So number of transistors, the maximum number of transistors that can be connected here has been reduced. Okay, so this also uh, increases the speed, because the transistors, the capacitors of the transistor connected in parallel, so it increases the capacitance. But on the other hand, if I use this A8 here or A8 here, what will happen? There will be a set of memory when A8 value is 0. There is another set of memory when A8 value is 1. So based on this A8 value, either this set of cells is used or this set of cells is used. Okay. So the column decoder, when it reads a particular bit, it has to, instead of reading through 256 lines, it has to read through 128 lines. So while reading a single column, the number of transistors connected could be maximum 256 in the previous case when it was A1 to A8. And now if you are using just A1 to A7 for read row decoding and A8 for column decoding, number of transistors connected in series is 128. So the amount of capacitors connected in parallel almost reduced to its half of its value. So it increases the speed of operation. That's the advantage of having dividing the memory. So if even if it is 16-bit, we can still arrange it in 16-bit, 16-bit. So total number of column is 32. The data remains 16-bit, but number of columns become 32. So this is another type of arrangement. So such design are also used in memory. Now this just an array of cells where the data can be stored. Each cell is capable of storing a single bit. Either it is 1 or it is 0. Now to complete the circuit, memory circuit, we must add some circuitry for reading and writing. So if you look at the entire memory organization, there are various cells in this. So these are cells. You need to have a row decoder, you need to have column decoder, and you need to have read circuitry and write circuitry. So a typical memory consists of a memory chip consists of these many circuits. And so this is called as a RAM arrangement because based on the value of this row and the column, any location can be accessed randomly. So even though it is called as a RAM arrangement, but still a ROM memory, that is read-only memory, and read-write memory, both of these types of memory can have this type of arrangement. So this is random access, but here on we will remember that RAM is here onward we are going to use RAM in place of read-write memory. So this is about uh, memory arrangement and the basics of memory. So I hope you understood it. In the next lecture, we will see read-only memory or ROM. Thank you.